I want to turn now to a series of stories that we are doing this week on how U.S. food regulations have left American consumers exposed to chemicals and additives that have been banned in other countries.
Potassium bromate is a suspected carcinogen that's banned for human consumption in Europe as well as China and India, but legal in the U.S., where it's used by some food makers to strengthen dough and estimated to be present in over 100 products.
There is evidence that it may be toxic to human consumers, that it may even either initiate or promote the development of tumours.
Professor Eric Millstone is an expert on food additives and told us European countries take a much more cautious approach to food safety.
Can we say for sure that these differences in regulations mean that people in the US have developed cancers that they would not have developed if they'd been eating only in Europe?
I think that is almost certainly the conclusion that we could reach.
It's not just potassium bromate, but many other chemicals and substances that are banned here in Europe over health concerns, but considered safe by the FDA.
Do you think most Americans are aware that they're being exposed to substances that are viewed as dangerous over here?
They probably just think, well, if it's available and it's in the store, then it's probably fine.
Is food safety a part of that decision?
For sure, yeah. How am I going to protect my children when it's just everywhere?
I really want to make this point. If you came down, as an alien to Earth, to the United States, and saw what was going on, 80% of adults obese or overweight, metabolic dysfunction, 8 of the 10 top killers tied to food, just getting away from our evolution, right? You'd have a clear policy recommendation. Let's really focus on food. Let's focus on teaching kids how to exercise, how to meditate, to get a control of their mind, how to eat healthy. That would obviously, anyone 100% of the time would say that's the policy recommendation. That's not what we do. We wait for everyone to get sick and then drug them, and it's much more expensive. In the United States, and this is an important point going back to Ozempic, the obesity drug, because the system's so rigged, because pharma spends 3 times more than any other industry on lobbying, the United States is not even able to negotiate the drug price, even though they're the largest payer. So Ozempic, prices don't go down when volume goes up. Prices are going up in healthcare and quality is getting worse. So Ozempic is $2,500 a year. It's not going down. There's a full court press for government subsidization, taxpayer funding. It literally, this sounds hyperbolic, but this is the case. If that is prescribed how it's projected, that will be trillions of dollars over the next 10 years.
As a Canadian that moved to the US, let me show you something. So this is American ketchup, right? And if you look at the ingredients, high fructose corn syrup, okay? And then this is the exact same brand, same ketchup that I bought in Canada while I was visiting this weekend. There's a maple leaf, okay? Look at this. None of that. Tomato paste, sugar, vinegar, salt, spices. Made with 5 simple ingredients. This is why America makes you sick.
I go to Italy and I'm like, oh my God, I could eat pizza and gelato every single day and I lose weight and feel great.
In 2018, I was diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, which means that I was on the verge of diabetes, but I didn't actually have diabetes. And that was because my diet was bad. I was not eating anything healthy at all. And even when I did eat healthy, my health wouldn't really improve like that. So on top of my doctors telling me to adjust my diet, I was even prescribed metformin at one point, which is to lower blood sugar. Anyway, that summer I went to Ivory Coast to go visit family, and I ate considerably greasy food. I ate grilled chicken and fried plantains and lots of stew, and I also ate a lot of carbs like cassavas or what we call achike. I also probably drank more Fanta than water. But despite all that, what I noticed on the trip is that my skin, it cleared up. After the trip, I returned back to the States. I had a physical, I did a bunch of tests and etc. I was really scared that my health got worse because of what I ate. But bro, I'll never forget this. When I got my results back, my doctors told me that my health improved and that I lost weight and that I should continue what I'm doing. What? That's what I knew. America's food is killing us, yo. I'm about to move out of here for my health.
Have you guys heard of this yet? So Mars Company is being sued for using an ingredient in Skittles that is supposedly unsafe for human consumption. The ingredient in question is titanium dioxide. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to talk about the chemical itself, but from what I was able to research, it has actually been banned in the European Union due to its cancer-causing properties. And so apparently the American FDA knows about this and only allows 1% of the product's weight to be in a product. Yet Mars Company was asked to remove it completely and promised to do so 6 years ago, but yet 6 years later, it's still there. You can read more about that on US News, LA Times, a couple other newspapers.
American bread is not bread, and it's absolutely horrible for you. See, to get the fluffy, sweet, delicious bread millions of Americans love to eat, you need a few very special ingredients, like potassium bromate, an additive that makes bread rise, or azodicarbonamide, a chemical to bleach and strengthen the dough. Do you know where else you can find these chemicals? In yoga mats, pesticides, and even explosives. And all these chemicals have one thing in common. They can cause all sorts of cancer. That's why the European Union, the UK, and even China have banned them from food production. But not in America. To this day, the FDA says these additives are generally recognized as safe to eat. Ah, yes.
Okay, so this is how messed up the food is that we eat. Okay, so it says it's fresh. It says it's, no artificial nothing, no blah, 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 whatever. Okay, it's been in my fridge for about a month, maybe a little longer. You open it up and it does not smell. It doesn't smell bad. It's not slimy. It's not slimy. There's nothing wrong with it, except, look. Okay, you would never be able to tell that this crap is bad, except for this right there. You can tell it's molded. But there's nothing slimy about it. Nothing. There's not even a rotten smell to it. That's the shit we put in our body. You can't even tell it's bad unless you actually freaking look at the meat. Real freaking meat that's bad would not be like that. It would smell bad. It would smell rotten. It would be slimy. I won't feed this shit to my dogs. I'm never buying this meat again.
There are 5 toxic chemicals in your food that the FDA considers to be safe. I'm Dr. Zarowski, and the first is going to be acylsulfame K. This is a chemically based sweetener that's linked to cancer, tumor growth, and even leukemia. From there, we move on to aspartame, which is also a chemically based sweetener that's linked to cancer. Then we have something called BHT, also known as BHA. This is a petroleum-derived chemical used to stabilize foods on the shelf. Then after that, we have Blue 1 and Blue 2. This may make your food look pretty, but it is a chemical linked to cancer. And then last, we have fluoride. Fluoride is a neurotoxin found in much drinking water and foods across the world.
But a lot of you are asking, why does the FDA allow all these toxic additives into our food, into our cosmetics, into our personal care items? Essentially, why do they allow it into our supermarkets? And so today I'm going to attempt to reply to that, to answer that. So behind me is an article written by Janine Interlandi. She is a scientist turned journalist. She mostly writes for the New York Times. So I'm going to use her as one of my references. Food science babes said always have references. So I'm going to start bringing the receipts moving forward. Anyways, so I'm going to explain why we have so many unknown additives in the supermarket. And that the reason behind that is because there is a loophole in the FDA ingredient approval process called the GRAS pathway. So there was a GRAS list. GRAS stands for generally recognized as safe. There was a GRAS list that was created in 1958, and this list included things like vinegar and sugar, things that were known to be safe, just so these manufacturers could get their products faster into the shelves. Now, the problem with this GRAS list is that, one, companies can self-certify that the ingredient is safe, and then two, they can provide the information to the FDA voluntarily. Can you imagine? So you can self-certify, and then you can or don't have to provide the information to the FDA. And that's why we find ourselves with over 10,000 unknown ingredients in the supermarket. Now, what is the FDA doing about this? Well, they've left it up to Congress. So Congress has a bill. It's called the Toxic Free Food Act. And I will create another TikTok about that. Thanks for watching.
What gets me is that in other countries like in Europe, they have all these ingredients in food that's just illegal because it gives you like terrible diseases and cancers, and just there's alternatives that are much healthier, and companies that make a version of a product that they sell here over there change their recipes to be in compliance with the law, and they end up putting in simpler, healthier ingredients. And here's the thing. They're still doing that. They're still having a business and perceivably being profitable, hence while they're there, without poisoning people quite so much. But yet here, with that knowledge, obviously they have the knowledge of what those things can do because they changed the recipe for over there, and they also know that they can be a profitable business. They said, that's not enough. And because it's seemingly easier, more legal to buy politicians and to buy the FDA here in this country, in America, they've decided that profit is more important than everybody else, everything else. Because in America, that too is literally the law if you're a publicly traded corporation. Maximize profits at your expense. Buy your politicians. Silence your voice. All for profit. But not just for any profit, for excess of profit. Hence, how they're still profitable in places where they're not poisoning people quite so much.
It's true that U.S. pork is banned in over 160 countries throughout the world, and that's because pork producers here in the U.S. use ractopamine in the feed, and that helps give more muscle mass to the pigs. But it's been linked to major health problems in humans such as Down syndrome and cardiovascular disease. So basically all the other countries are like, we don't want that in our food, and the FDA here in America is like, it's okay, as long as you don't have it in large amounts, it's not that bad. I talked about this in another video, and I got a lot of people commenting that they would get headaches after eating pork from the US. There is some good news to this video. Tyson, which is one of the biggest producers of chicken and pork in the US, they decided to not use ractopamine anymore, but it wasn't because of anyone's health. It was because they were losing out on the Chinese market, which they didn't want to buy it because it had ractopamine. So they decided in 2019 not to use it anymore. And it's funny because they even admit to that right here on their website. So yeah. And there's definitely more to this list, so if you guys want a part 3, let me know.
And chicken grown from animal cells in large tanks. The FDA has given the green light for safety, and now one company is ready to ramp up production just outside San Francisco.
This is what you've called a slaughterless house.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The equipment looks like a commercial brewery, but it's not beer they're making.
So that's where it all starts, just a few cells.
It's meat. So you're making meat in here.
Yes.
But I don't see any animals and I don't see any animal parts.
Well, that's the trick, right?
Stainless steel bioreactors or cultivators produce real meat from animal stem cells. You're making chicken in there.
Yeah, so if you look at this, this is approximately a 200+ liter tank, and we take cells from a chicken or an egg.
Dr. Uma Valetti is a cardiologist who founded Upside Foods, taking on a food chain as old as time.
It takes 2 weeks to grow the equivalent of 1 chicken, 1,000 chickens, or 100,000 chickens.
So you're saying in this factory you can make more meat faster and cleaner than an average farmer?
Well, ultimately, yes.
But first, the technology costing billions of dollars to fine-tune will need even more investment to scale up. We saw how cells kept on ice can be replicated on a large scale, fed a mixture of vitamins, fats, sugars, and oxygen in tanks, growing into tissues of chicken. Farmers have been growing meat for generations. What problem are you solving here?
The demand for meat is continuing to grow and double, and we just don't have enough resources nor ability to continue to grow that much meat. So the simple problem we're trying to solve is to bring meat to the table in a way that future generations can have an abundance of it, but with the upside to animal welfare.
The potential to exponentially expand the food supply has attracted top-tier investors like Bill Gates, Richard Branson, and Whole Foods founder John Mackey. President Biden is also on board, signing an executive order to support cultivating alternative food sources. Advocates say cultivating meat could feed more families, reduce harm to animals, and eliminate environmental impacts of animal farming, which is responsible for 15% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide.
Is it safe? Absolutely. The best indication for this is 2 months ago, we are the first company in the world to get FDA green light to bring cultivated chicken to the market.
FDA says it's safe.
FDA said it was safe. It gave a green light to say, go ahead and go to the market.
But some say cultivating meat is still just a novelty.
How are you going to make an impact in the environment if you cannot scale this at a reasonable cost?
Farmers fear a threat to their brand.
So what should it be labeled?
Cultured meat, lab grown, something that just stands out and lets the consumer know what they're eating.
And will consumers even like the taste?
Today we're cooking our upside chicken fillet, and we'll be serving that with a white wine butter sauce and pan-roasted vegetables. Can you smell it yet?
I can smell it. It smells like chicken.
And you have to slice it. It's not a plant-based piece.
All right, my first bite of cultivated meat. It's chicken.
Cultivated chicken could soon be on restaurant menus in California and then possibly store shelves for a premium price in a few years.
You've called this a watershed moment.
Yeah, people are buying meat right now, despite how it's made. What if we can make the process more kinder, caring, healthier, nutritious? I believe nearly everybody will get behind it.
Now, before cultivated meat can go on sale in grocery stores, the USDA has to approve a label for the products. What are they going to call it? That could come anytime, guys. And I am told they expect it to get approved sometime this year. And then the big question is, would you buy it? Would you eat it?
Yeah, that's a question. I have another question. You said you said that's like chicken, but what was the texture like?
Well, the texture was different than traditional chicken, I'll tell you that. But it did taste like chicken. And the interesting thing is scientists say that cultivating meat, they can actually control the fat content in it, so they can make it healthier, less saturated fat, no cholesterol. And then there's no antibiotics, no growth hormones when they put it in those tanks. So potentially, if you're into that kind of meat, it could be better for you.